Former President Donald Trump is accusing the Department of Justice and the FBI of mishandling his second assassination attempt case. Trump says the federal gun charges against suspect Ryan Ruth are just a slap on the wrist, and he wants the state of Florida, under Governor Ron DeSantis, to handle this case. Meanwhile, we are learning new information about the suspect accused of targeting Trump, the so-called would-be assassin. And I say so-called, the case has not been adjudicated yet, but he's at the center of all of the investigations. David Spunt is live at the DOJ with more. David.
Hi, Harris. Good afternoon. This is turning out to be a classic state versus federal government fight, although this happens to deal with an investigation into the attempted assassination of a former president 6 weeks before an election, so it is a bit unusual. Former President Donald Trump says the DOJ needs to charge Ryan Ruth with something a little bit tougher, other than the two federal gun crimes that he's charged with. DOJ said yesterday in open court a stronger charge is coming, a charge that could put Ruth behind bars for the rest of his life. He's facing those two firearm charges, but it could slow down a state investigation led by Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody if he is charged with the attempted assassination of a presidential candidate. Ashley Moody is asking the DOJ to keep her in the loop while not slowing down her state probe. Now, Ruth was in court yesterday. He was smiling. He was shackled. He was wearing a blue prison jumpsuit. He appeared engaged and was taking some notes. Prosecutors have a recorded jailhouse phone call where Ruth apologized to a female friend for his actions. The DOJ released a letter on the public docket. Federal prosecutors say it's in Ruth's hands. In the first few words, admit that this was an assassination attempt on the former president. He dropped it off in a box at his friend's house months ago. His friend just opened it and alerted authorities. Those authorities say Ruth had 6 cell phones, Harris, and a passport in his getaway car. At least one phone had a Google search of how to travel from South Florida to Mexico. Agents also found a handwritten list of past and future Trump appearances. Again, if DOJ brings this attempted assassination charge, which it is expected to do here anytime in the next few days, that could put Ruth behind bars for the rest of his life. Harris.
David Spunt, thank you very much. A lot to dig into. I want to talk about with you, Emily, the difference between, or where the power lies in terms of adjudicating a case. The governor of Florida and that state, or the federal government, because that's what we're digging into. Trump wants, Florida to take over.
Right. So generally speaking, in a fight between the feds and the state, the feds would win, right? However, precedence is that the federal government respects state sovereignty, and they actually want to promote state sovereignty over certain crimes, right? It's sort of healthy for civilization to do so. And note, for example, Dylan Roof, the horrific murders, he was charged both state and federal, and actually that was a rare case in that he faced the death penalty at both levels, which is very rare. So here, the issue would be both could absolutely prosecute this individual, and Donald Trump is right if he feels that the federal charges are not commensurate with the heinousness of the attempted or inchoate crime, then absolutely the state should step in with the force that it deserves. All
right, politics aside, because I know it's a Democratic governor, John Shapiro, but Pennsylvania, the first assassination attempt on Trump. Should they have fought harder, since it happened in Butler County, Pennsylvania, should they have fought harder for their voices to be heard in terms of adjudicating the case?
Argument could be made totally that indeed they should have, yes.
All right. So you heard the charges against Dylan Ruth, and I know you have some thoughts about that.
Well, I'm glad that he was facing the death penalty at both levels. That was one of the most heinous crimes, in my view, in American history. But look, I would say this about Trump wanting Florida to be in charge. Why would he trust Merrick Garland's DOJ, who engaged in lawfare, who has weaponized justice against him in unprecedented cases against pro-lifers and so on and so forth? I would much prefer DeSantis be the one investigating.
Marie.
The FBI and DOJ have a lot more resources than any state, and this is an individual who did not live in Florida, had lived in Hawaii, had lived in North Carolina. I think we need to get to the bottom of this, and we need the resources of the federal government behind that. No matter who is in charge of it and no matter who the governor of Florida is, I think that we need DOJ to be the one taking the lead on an attempted assassination of a presidential candidate.
Steve.
And to add to your point, Kayleigh, why would he trust the FBI? The FBI tried to stop him getting elected in 2016. They've tried to undermine his presidency for the whole 4 years. And then again, they supported his opponent in 2020. Of course, you naturally wouldn't trust any of these people.
Great
We'll
point.
follow it as it happens.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.